Hello everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and this will be a trailer review of Morbius. Now Morbius is the latest superhero movie from Sony, which is based within their current superhero universe, which is ironically based on classic Spiderman villains. This is of course following both Venom and Venom Let There Be Carnage. Now Morbius is a well-known Spiderman villain. His origin centers around student Michael Morbius, who is trying to cure himself from a blood disease. During his experiment, he uses bat DNA and ends up becoming a vampire with super strength and the bloodlust. Now Morbius is due for release on January the 28th, 2022, and it stars Jared Leto in the lead role, and it will be directed by Daniel Espinosa. Now, to be honest with you, I haven't been overly enthusiastic about a solo film about Morbius. Well, yes, I primarily know him from the classic 90s Spider-Man animated series. I wouldn't quite put him up there in terms of the all-time classic villains alongside Dr. Octopus, Green Goblin, Scorpion and Venom. He's much more of a mid-tier Spider-Man villain, to be honest, and in recent incarnations he's been painted far more of an anti-hero. So I guess that's the direction they're going for when we are looking at this overall live-action movie. Now Sony did release a teaser trailer for Morbius going back a couple of months ago, and more recently a full-on trailer was released showcasing the film itself. So from the trailer, will Morbius go on to be another successful entry within Sony's Spider-Man verse? Now after watching this trailer, I have to say I'm not really as sure as to whether it will be a successful entry. Looking at this trailer overall, it had very much of that messy, chaotic CGI direction that I saw very much from the Venom movie. They seem to follow very much the same direction as the source material, where we see earlier scenes where Morbius is very much of an established doctor. He's looking for this cure to this blood disease, and we see in the early scenes that it's not only him that's suffering from it, but also other people as well, where we have the earlier scene where we see him looking after the young black girl patient within the hospital. So they're very much trying to make him more of a hero. A lot in the early scenes was trying to make us to sympathise with the character, where we see him hobbling along on his crutches as he's searching for the cure, and then we venture into various locations where we see him in helicopter searching indeed for the magical cure. He seemingly finds the pivotal point in his quest where we see him putting his hand, of which he is cut, amidst the glass, and then this exhibits a lot of bats to surround him. Very much vibes of Batman Begins, if you remember that iconic scene where we see Bruce Wayne being surrounded by bats in the Batcave. That's very much what this reminded me of when I saw this particular sequence. And then we established later on in the story that he's been gone for about 2 months or so, and he's been later on discovered, and we see him resurfacing, adjusting to his abilities. We see certain scenes where he's got the ability to change very much into different forms of energy. There's that shot where he manifests himself into almost purple smoke. We have the other scene in the subway where he's got this white energy around him. This is a visualization of his certain heightened senses, so in terms of his super sight and also his super hearing as well. We get those close-up shots of his face around there. We do get some truly dodgy effects, in my opinion, when we see him flying spiritually, it seems, in front of the train, going in and hovering around it. The effects weren't very convincing here, so I don't know if they've still got some way to go in terms of finishing them off. There's not a long way to go now if the film is due for a January release, but just not the most impressive effects. We have another revelation where he seemingly has a bat radar. We see that shot here where we see the city being covered in this more of this silver-like glow. Now, I'm not sure what they're going for here. Maybe it's a way that he can sense other vampire beings within the city, or maybe he can hear people's senses. As I mentioned before, the origin of the character is that he has to satisfy his bloodlust. So will we see in the beginning of the movie, this is how he's able to sense his potential victims, that he can essentially scan the city and perhaps sense people's heartbeats. With all the various abilities that we're seeing within this trailer, are they making him a bit overpowered here? The fact that he can fly, he can have super hearing, super strength, and scan the city and manifest himself in different energy forms. I just think this is a Morbius where, if everything from what we've seen in the trailer, if he was able to come up against Spider-Man now, he'd pretty much beat him convincingly with all of the different powers and abilities that I'm seeing on screen here. So I do understand that they do want to expand on the skill set of Morbius. They don't want to just do their typical vampire-like storyline. So I can understand that they want to be a bit more creative, a bit more imaginative. But still, there's quite a lot of abilities that I was seeing within this trailer. So it was just something I noticed when looking at this overall direction that they've taken with the character. We did get a glimpse of actor Matt Smith, and the trailer very much hints that he may indeed be the potential villain. We get that throwaway line from Tyrese about somebody wanting to search down Morbius and try to harness his power. So it very much seems that we're going for much more of an Incredible Hulk dynamic, where you have an individual who has a certain power, but he's very much tortured by it. It's almost as if it's some sort of curse. And we're going to see some sort of narrative where Morbius is trying to rid himself of this power, and then you have other individuals such as Matt Smith who want to try and capture him and harness it for their own particular devices. So we get a shot here of Michael Keaton, who we presume will be playing Adrian Toomes, if you remember from Spider-Man Homecoming. It's probably going to provide a lot of confusion for general audiences as to which timeline or indeed which universe Morbius takes place in. So, as I mentioned before, the sight of Keaton may indicate that this takes place within the MCU. But then we get another shot where we see the Oscorp building in the skyline. So will this link to the Andrew Garfield films, or would this be their own interpretation of Norman Osborn and Oscorp? If you remember, Norman Osborn hasn't been established in the MCU yet, but he has been established in the Sam Raimi films as well. So which universe will they pick from in terms of that element? We then see another shot where he looks at a newspaper, and if you look carefully at the headlines, you get name references to both the Rhino and the Black Cat as well. So it wouldn't surprise me if these are the two next villains that Sony wants to create live action adaptations around. We have that line at the end of the trailer where he name drops Venom. We are Venom, and it's almost a joke. So this is obviously connecting to the Venom universe. So amidst all of the excitement and anticipation of the second Spider-Man No Way Home trailer, along with the recent release of Venom Let There Be Carnage, we're going to see a lot of speculation from fans as to where exactly Morbius ties in terms of which universe. And of course, when we eventually see Spider-Man No Way Home, we assume we'll get far more expansion into the much hyped multiverse story arc that Marvel are undertaking. So perhaps things will be much more clear when we see that film overall, and maybe we may indeed get a certain end credit scene that will tie into Morbius. And it's no surprise that Sony wants to indeed feed off the momentum of Spider-Man No Way Home, which they will hope will lead into Morbius and give that film far more chance of overall success. In terms of the trailer overall, I'm still very mixed. There were some very good CGI shots. I like the rendition of Morbius in his full form, that looks very good, but there are other certain shots that still have that sort of 90s action beat about them. They look very hurried, very unfinished, and it's not a very good impression, I think, overall in terms of this movie. As I mentioned at the start of this video, I'm still not overly that hyped for a Morbius film. I don't think really anybody was asking for a solo Morbius film, but this is the way now with multiple studios. When they own these IPs, everybody wants to do a cinematic universe. They want to copy the formula and success of the MCU, of course. And of course, with Sony having the rights to Spider-Man, who has a huge catalogue of various rogues, they want to exploit that overall. So, as I mentioned in previous videos, I do believe we are now seeing the beginning, if you like, of the end of the long-time association between Sony and Marvel in terms of the sharing of Spider-Man. I believe the end result of Spider-Man No Way Home, or Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, will see a breaking away of the character, and we'll see the Peter Parker version go over to the Sony universe and Miles Morales go over to the MCU. And certainly with this Morbius movie, we'll see further hints and allusions to that overall scenario, which I believe will eventually happen. So those are my overall thoughts and feelings on Morbius, the second trailer. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I was hyped up for Morbius. Do you think there's any value in a solo Morbius movie? Do you like the fact that they're taking this more anti-hero approach, or would you prefer him to be an outright villain and would rather see him interacting more with Spider-Man himself rather than his own solo movie? Do you think this gives any further impressions for Kraven Hunter that we'll see in the future? And how do you think Sony will overall be as successful going ahead with this Spider-Man verse, where we're dealing with the villains without Spider-Man? Do you think this will crash and burn, or do you think we'll just have further success in the future? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.